Hi guys, how are you? Hope you're good. I'm filming here again because the universe is against us and I can't film in that room. And also there's a person playing an accordion outside. I don't know how much you'll hear of that, but we don't let these things stop us, do we here? Nuh-uh. But today I'm here with some science fiction recommendations. One of my, if not my favorite genre of books to read, because I just love it so much. I always find that science fiction is so humorous as well. They're always so funny, not always, but like often they're very funny, and like actually funny, not just like try hard funny. They literally take you out of this world, not just out of your head, and touch upon very important topics of like inclusion and interspecies stuff and just tolerance and friendship, and can get philosophical with multiverses and whether or not artificial intelligence can like reach and go beyond like human consciousness. It's interesting to me, it's mind-boggling. I know that sometimes it can be kind of daunting though, because some of the science fiction books can be pretty dry and have a lot of scientific terminology that is kind of like painful to read through. So I totally understand if you are sort of not really into it or afraid to start some, but I have a list of my all-time favorites so far, science fiction books, and I've sort of broke them down into what type of science fiction book is it. So if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you can try that one. So I actually got quite a few of messages of you guys asking what are the easier science fiction books to start with if you never read science fiction but you would like to try. And for very similar reasons, I've chose these two books. I think that they both are very friendly on like the jargon side of things, and they do involve it, but it's easy to understand. And because of the formatting of both of these books, I think you fly through it, and once you're hooked, it's so much easier to like enjoy the book than when you actually have to go through like long paragraphs of scientific mumbo jumbo. So because of that, and because of the stories of both of these being so interesting and plot twists like left and right, and you're literally so immersed in these two books, that I think it's perfect for anyone starting their science fiction adventure. Though be warned, you might get super hooked and then all you're gonna want to read is science fiction, which is not a bad thing. So the first of these is a trilogy that I've finished recently, and it's one of my all-time favorite in general, and that is Sleeping Giants. And the second one is called Waking Gods, and the third one is called Only Humans. So it's a finished trilogy, and you can go ahead and read that if you like going into the series when all of it is finished, so you can binge it if you want to. These books are written in basically a dialogue format, because these are recordings between our main sort of almost like a storyteller character and other main characters. So we see everything through this interviewer, which might sound like you're missing out a lot of descriptors and such, but I honestly didn't miss anything, and it was so nice to read in this format as well. The book starts off with this young girl falling into a ditch, and she lands on this massive metal hand. Then she grows up and follows a path of academia and becomes a researcher, and then gets involved in a project that actually is trying to see what this metal hand is all about. That this metal seems to be absolutely ancient, but there's no way that something like that could be made by humans if the age of the metal or the whole like technology is what they think it is. And they also struggle to understand how this metal is made of. Then we meet a whole team of people who are supposed to investigate this further, and the further it gets, the more insane it gets as well. I think the second one and the third one were my favorite. I enjoyed it so much. The intrigue drives you forward and keeps you reading, and I really just enjoyed it so much. I love the characters, and I just 100% recommend. It's one of my favorite now. And then very similarly, this book is all over YouTube, so I'm sure you've seen it. It's Illumina. This is another trilogy that's now finished, and so again, if you're into that binging life, you can do that with these as well. Illumina starts off in a colony where the colony gets attacked by these mysterious ships and gets basically destroyed, and they have to evacuate, and then they're split into these two different ships, and there's a whole mess. So there's questions of who attacked them, why did they attack them, and we have our two main characters, Katie and Ezra, get separated a little bit. It's a couple that just broke up, and it's very funny, and it includes an artificial intelligence that everyone loves, Aiden, and again, it's written in mostly like chats and dialogues, and it has like weird pages like this and even weirder like this that's actually text. And it's extremely plot driven. It's very much event after event after event, and it's gonna hook you up 100%. And it's like, it's very unusual formatting, and I think a massive majority of people enjoyed this book. I'm not saying it's for everyone because I don't think that such a thing exists, but I think that it's a very good chance that you're gonna enjoy this if you do pick it up. And this one is the young adult one as well, so it's definitely not overwhelming. I definitely do recommend it, and it was just really fun. The only thing that I will mention is that the 3 books are fairly repetitive, but if you did love this one and you're not tired of the tropes that they're gonna introduce here, then you're gonna love the whole 3 of them, and it's a lot of fun. The next book that I'm gonna speak about is total brain food, and I loved every single bit of it. It's a thriller science fiction book, and it's called Dark Matter. I love it so much. I pushed this book like on a daily to people because I thought that it was so interesting, and I was hooked throughout the whole thing. Kind of sucky thing is that I can't really speak about this book without giving out the massive thing why I loved it so much. But it's basically about a guy who lives a life and is fairly happy, but then one day gets kidnapped and needs to fight through so many things to get back to his life, and it's insane. And oh my god, it gave me all of the feels, and I loved it so much. And oh my god, it's so messed up and it's so great, and I recommend this 100%. And I'm so sorry that I can't tell you any more about why this is the sci-fi, but it's a massive spoiler, and I honestly believe, I know some don't consider it a spoiler when you say like this is the theme that has like a theme of this and that, but I do, because I feel like that's so important to not know about it. So I just really hope people pick this up because it was such a journey, and it's amazing. Now, of course, I have to mention this book because of course I have to. I am very much due a reread of these because it's been such a long time that a lot of things are just like lost in my head. Like, it's been a really long time, but when I did read this, I loved it. I watched the movie, I also loved it. I know not everyone did, but like whatever, I loved it. This is not for everyone. This is a very quirky type of book. It's very silly. Even just the fact that there's 5 books and it's called the trilogy, just like for the shits and giggles, you know, it's quite ridiculous, but I love it to pieces. So if you have the sense of humor that is like that nonsense slides, then Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a must. And also, the 5 books are really actually quite tiny, so if you want to start like small, like size-wise, there you are. And so this is about a guy who meets this friend, and they're friends for a bit, and that friend tells him one day that the Earth is gonna end and that he needs to get out of them. And he's actually an alien from another planet. He came here to Earth for research, and then he wants to like take him away. And he obviously when you're told something like that, you're not gonna believe it, but you know, it happens. And the reason why Earth, and this like starts, and this is not considered a spoiler by the way, it starts like, it's very early on. He basically tells him that the Earth is gonna be destroyed because it's equivalent for it to be standing on like a new road that they're making in the galaxy, if you just want to compare it to like how life is here. So basically it's just inconvenient place, and they're just gonna get rid of it. So and it gets all sorts of bizarre. There's this depressed robot that they encounter, which is like one of my favorite characters overall in literature. I just love it so much. There's this super brain computer that found out the meaning of life. It's very bizarre, but it's hitchhiking in the galaxy, out there in the universe. There's so many adventures, so many laughable moments, so many just emotional moments. I just loved it so much, and I really recommend it to, but only to people who think that that kind of thing is for them. You know, I would maybe read like a chapter of something to check if that's something you would like or not. But if you're into for a goofy read of science fiction, it probably can't get better than this. Now, as I said, I find that a lot of science fiction books are actually quite funny, but there's 2 that really stood out to me for being exactly that. The first one is of course The Martian, and it's so hilarious. It's about a guy who basically, his team suffers an accident and he is left on Mars because the teammates thought that he died, and he is indeed very much alive with very limited resources, trying to live on Mars until he gets rescued or until he finds out the way home. And it's, while extremely sad, The main character uses his humor as like a defense mechanism, and it's hilarious. It's honestly so hilarious. And in this one in particular, however, did have quite a lot of scientific terminology and language, and it was fairly hard to follow in some bits. I might have skimmed through a little bit, but there's so much more to it that it's really worth it, even if you're struggling with these a little bit. I mean, I did. There's also a movie that I absolutely loved as well, but obviously the book is always better, but the movie was also really good, so you can read this and then reward yourself with watching a movie. I loved it so much. It was so funny, and I love Mark Watney so much. He's again one of my favorite characters overall. A lot of these books are my favorite books overall. I just really like sci-fi, so excuse my excitement in this video, but it's just like because I love them so much. Oh, sorry, there's 3 books I wanted to mention in this category. So the next one is We Are Legion, We Are Bob, and it starts off, he's a developer and he earns quite a bit of money and then signs up for a company that basically says that they're gonna store his mind or brain or whatever until such time that there is a means to somehow bring it back, maybe? Why not? So, and he just does it for like fun, and then gets hit by a car and dies in the first chapter. And so we're following him and his journey of being sort of like an artificial intelligence, but completely himself, and adjusting and being replicated and sent into space. And it's hilarious. There are some very sad bits, but it's hilarious, and it sometimes makes you think a lot. And I really enjoyed this series so much, and there's a whole purpose of why he's out there in space. It's a very fun, sad, emotional, but again funny journey, and I really recommend it if you're into sort of like ironic humor as well, or sarcastic, as there's a lot of sarcasm and irony here. And the last one I think in this category is We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. This is about a space pilot that, after the transportation has been released to like public, he's not really needed and is like a glorified space taxi man now. So the mighty have fallen and he's left to basically scramble for the living and really struggling to survive. And then he gets this offer to pretend to be a different pilot and work for this kind of shady man in one delivery, and after a while he's just like, sure, why not? And then he didn't know which identity he's assuming, and he's assuming this like very unpopular guy between his like circles. And then he goes on into this mission, and everything that could go wrong does, and the crew is really funny, and just the whole setting is really adorable, and even the title clearly says that it's gonna be kind of funny. And the last book that I'm gonna talk about is a book for someone who is not entirely driven by plot, and then maybe they imagine sci-fi is to just be like all action and shooting stuff and, you know, lightsabers. Maybe they're really character-driven people like myself, and they just don't want to go and venture into science fiction because they think it is really just action, which a lot of them are very packed with action. I have one that's perfect for you then if you're the kind of person that I'm describing, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Every single character in this book I love with all of my heart, and I would die for them. It literally, there's some of the characters are like my all-time favorite. I don't think there is a book out in the wildness that I loved so many characters off. It's just so amazing. This is about a crew, and each person in the crew's, well, almost each person in the crew is like different species. This is far in the future, but it's so much more than just like space travel. The whole crew is in the ship that is basically creating gem stations, so they work on travel and making that available for others. It's so much more about it. It talks about discrimination, it talks about different traditions, different lifestyle, different views on life, and it's so thought-provoking, I found, and it was really such a joy to read. And Becky Chambers' writing style, I just adore everything about this book, including the cover. And the third one is coming out in July, but those are sort of standalones because they continue in the same universe, but they're not following the same people, so you don't have to actually commit to a series at all. You can just read this and just stop there, but if you like it, there's some more stories for you out there. I just think that this is very perfect for people who are, admittedly there's not a lot of action, so as I think when people dislike it, it's usually for that, because it's quite a slow book when it's action wise, but I loved every single bit of it, and I really hope people do pick up this book, especially if they're character driven. And that is everything for now. I'm sure there's gonna be so many more science fiction books that I loved. If you guys enjoyed this video, maybe next year or in a while I'll make a second one. recommending some other science fiction books. I feel like science fiction is one of the genres that people sometimes avoid just because it's like unfamiliar ground and it seems like it's gonna be so much effort, but it really is so enjoyable, and I just really want people to like give it a go. And if it's not for them, that's fair enough, but I just want people to give it a go and maybe then fall in love with it as much as I did, because it honestly brings me so much joy. As I said, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite genre out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do read science fiction, let me know what was your like top favorite book if you had to pick one, because I'm always looking for more recommendations myself. If you are gonna read a book or a few of this list, let me know which one you're gonna read as well. And stay awesome, stay kind, and I'll see you soon. Bye!